Andy Gagliano will face for radio. Here, let me zoom in on that.
Best looking guy on the radio. So, anyway, who in here is traveling and turkey hunting already? All right. Good deal. Who in here is traveling and turkey hunting with some sort of a goal in mind? So you're trying to achieve or accomplish something. Okay. To kill a turkey. I guess I need to walk that back a little bit and explain a little bit more, don't I? Other than to kill a turkey. So it seems like traveling and turkey hunting is just gotten to be a really popular thing to do, and I think a lot of that stems from social media and YouTube and whatever else. So first of all, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Andy Gagliano. I host the Turkey Hunter podcast, and I've been doing that for April will be 11 years that I've had the podcast. And I started, let me say this, I am nothing in the turkey hunting world. I turkey hunt with people who are way, and I am not exaggerating, way better turkey hunters than I am, way better turkey callers than I am, and way better woodsmen than I am. And of course, I like to hunt with them because we go and we kill turkeys. But I am an average turkey caller. I'm an average turkey hunter. But like every one of you, I'm eat up with it. And I know that y'all are all eat up with it because you're here and we're predicting to get 8 inches of snow today. And y'all wouldn't be here if you weren't the same as me. But I started traveling and turkey hunting with the goal of killing a grand slam. And I'd always read and I'd always heard about how hard it is to kill a grand slam. And that was the 20-something years ago, kind of the gold standard of turkey hunting. You go and kill the different subspecies of turkeys, and you know that was kind of a big thing back then. And so in 2001, I said, well, I want to go and kill a grand slam. So where do I go to do that? Well, so I'm recording the audio for this from this seminar for the podcast. Josh is recording video to cut some of that up and use it on YouTube, so I'm not going to say anything to incriminate myself, but I bumped into a game warden one day in Alabama, and he and I started talking about traveling and turkey hunting. And he said, well, I go to Nebraska every year, and I go out there and I kill a Merriam's, and I go in May. And I thought, well, man, our turkey season ends the end of April. To be able to go in May and hunt, that would be cool. Plus, the Merriam's are beautiful. And if I'm going to do this Grand Slam thing, I got to have that. So I started just picking his brain. Where do you go? You're hunting public ground or private ground? What are you doing? And he said, come over to my house, and I've got a folder of everything. Where I stay, how much the permits cost. I mean, he does things the right way by keeping track of what he does. And that's one thing I'm going to touch on a little bit, is how important it is to do that. So anyway, next thing I know, this is end of March. I've got a trip planned for the following year to go to Nebraska. And I'm just by sheer coincidence, he and I planned our trips for the same time frame. And just by sheer coincidence, we ended up staying in cabins that were right next to each other on that trip. So, but he never said, I'm going over into this area to hunt. I have a lot of luck over here or anything like that. And so me and my buddies, we just kind of struck out on our own and did a lot of exploring and found some birds. But anyway, that goal of trying to kill a Grand Slam, I ended up killing the Grand Slam over the course of 2 seasons. I went to Nebraska that year, and I actually, that was 2002. So I started you out in 2001, but that was 2002 that I went to Nebraska. And I went to Texas the same year. I hunted with an outfitter in Texas and killed a Rio, or 4 Rios. And of course, I'd killed several Easterns to that point because I live in Alabama, and you know, it's at that point in time in the early 2000s, it wasn't hard to find a turkey in Alabama. Now it's real hard to find them in Alabama. And so that left me needing an Osceola to complete my Grand Slam. So in the spring of 2000, in 2002, me and the buddies that I went hunting with in Nebraska planned a trip to go to Florida. And I found this place to go in Florida and ended up going with a friend of my dad's he's passed away now, but was a big game hunter. And just a little side note, when I say he traveled all over the world, he killed a sheep or a goat, every species of sheep or goat in the entire world. So he had a spot in South Florida to go to, and I ended up going on that trip with him in 2003. It was me and two other buddies, and 2 of us killed our Osceola, so that completed my Grand Slam. And when I was on my way to the emergency room after I completed my Grand Slam, I got to thinking, hey, this is pretty fun. And now that I've completed a Grand Slam, what do I want to do? And so after I got back from the emergency room and was sitting around camp and had a few Bud Lights with my buddies, and we were talking, and remember, that was 2003, before Bud Light wasn't any good anymore. We're sitting around, we're talking, and it was kind of like, well, so Andy's completed his slam, and one of the guys, Brian, has now, he's got Eastern, he's got his Osceola, and my friend Chip had everything except his Osceola. We're still on that hunt and participating in it, but he was close to finishing his Grand Slam, so what do we do now? And I just said, well, I'd like to kill a turkey in every state. So they both said, oh, that would be cool. That'd be a lot of fun. Let's try to do that. So we did. And of course, since Brian had just gotten started really, because he killed his Osceola, he needed a Rio and needed a Merriam. So the next year we went out for Merriams. And were able to get Brian his Merriams. Chip did not kill an Osceola on that trip, but we booked another trip back to Florida that following year, and he killed his Osceola then. That completed his Grand Slam. So what I found during all of this was being able to go, when you're traveling and turkey hunting, you get to extend your season. You get to chase turkeys that you've never chased before, never met before, and don't know anything about. And that's an adventure in and of itself. And man, you meet some really cool people. That was another part of it too. Because the people we went and hunted with in Florida, they were as hospitable and personable as, I mean, from the time we got there, they treated us like family. They put us up in their farmhouse, fed us breakfast, lunch, and supper. At lunchtime, we'd go out and play telephone pole golf, where something they created, you just hit a ball from one telephone pole to the other, and whoever hits closest gets the dollar, or dollar a person. But it was just an experience. And so the entire trip was it was a blast. And so the wife of the couple that we hunted with, she's passed away now, but we still talk to the man that we hunted with in Florida the very first time. I mean, you make friends, just like coming here. You meet these call makers up here and you start talking to them, and we had this common bond of a love of wild turkey that we can always just pick right back up on that relationship. And it's like you see these guys once a year, and it's like you've been around them every day of the week for the past year, and you haven't, or every day of the week, every week of the year, and you haven't. But that's the way it was with these people in Florida that we hunted with. And so that really just kind of built this fire up in me to do this and to accomplish this goal of trying to kill a turkey in every state. So anyway, what I would say, I'm gonna get on the topic of traveling and turkey hunting here in a second and quit telling stories. Well, quit telling as many stories. But what I would say for those of you in the room that have not really traveled a whole lot and turkey hunted is decide what your purpose is. I'm the kind of person, and I love your answer when I ask the question of, are you traveling and turkey hunting for a purpose or a goal, and to kill a turkey? That's the goal. It's the reason why we go. It's the reason why we get up at 3 o'clock in the morning even to hunt at home and go hunt. But find your purpose. Is it to kill a grand slam? Is it just to go and kill a Merriam's because they're beautiful? And to kill them where they live in the mountains, which are beautiful? Is it to go hunt the swamps and fight the mosquitoes and the alligators and the snakes in South Florida to kill an Osceola? Is it to go to South Texas to kill a Rio and just see the different terrain, or whatever it might be there? So kind of come up with your purpose, and that purpose can change and it will change as you go through and do this. But if we're wandering through life, if we're wandering through turkey hunting without a purpose or without a goal, then we're not doing real well. So make sure you got that purpose and that goal, and be flexible with it. Let it grow or let it shrink. You may change it altogether. I bumped into a guy in New Mexico. I told you I was going to get back to stories. I bumped into a guy in New Mexico 2 years ago, and we're in the parking lot of this of this public ground, and he says, and I asked him, I said, well, are you trying to kill the Super Slam? And he said, no. He said, I started, and I got about 10 states in, and I realized how crazy trying to accomplish the Super Slam has become, and I quit. And I'm just going where I want to go, hunting where I want to hunt, and taking as much time when I go there as I want to take. And I looked at him and I said, you're doing it the right way. Because when my goal became to kill the Super Slam, to kill a turkey in every state that has turkeys, that goal took away from the experience. It took away from the journey, that end goal became my purpose for doing everything. And it's like, okay, that end goal is to get on the other side of this room, and I'm going to get there as quick as I can, but I'm not going to enjoy stopping and talking to every single one of you between here and there. I'm just going to get there. And when you start doing that, you're doing a disservice to the turkey, all the turkeys that you kill, and you're doing a disservice to yourself. So that's why I say let that goal, we still need the goals, but let the goal, let it be flexible. Let it shrink or let it grow, whatever you want to do with it, but don't let it dominate you and dominate your journey of getting there. The journey is the fun of being able to get there, of accomplishing that goal. So after you got your goal or you got your purpose, those are our reasons for waking up in the morning. Those are our reasons for sitting down in front of the computer to book airfare. Those are the reasons for spending hours and hours and hours on OnX or whatever map app you guys use. But after you get that together, then a lot of the fun starts. And that's the preparation and the planning. And that, as you already know, is going to lead to your success when you get out there on those trips. So what all's involved in that? Well, there's a lot of scouting that's involved. There's more scouting. There should be some scouting mixed in with all that scouting that you're doing, and some more scouting on top of that. But let that be secondary, because you can't scout to hunt if you don't plan the hunt, and planning the hunt's got to take priority. So where are you going to go? Is your goal to just extend your season? Because like I said, I'm from Alabama. I hunt Alabama every day that I'm in Alabama during turkey season. But our season ends, well, now on May the 8th-ish. But there's still a lot of turkey hunting to be had from May the 8th until the end of, or the first week in June. The end of the first week in June, somewhere in that neighborhood, is either when Michigan or Maine ends. And so I've got roughly a month that turkey season's in somewhere, and I am the drug addict that's got to feed the habit. I'm the turkey addict that's got to feed the habit of turkey hunting, so I'm going to go somewhere and do something. So is it to extend your season? Is it to start your season early? You guys from Tennessee, you're now starting to hunt about July 1, I think is when your season comes in. Not really, it comes in about the middle of the second week in April, but that's a long time. Mississippi's been open for a full month almost by the time your season comes in. So are you going to sit at home and just wait on April the 12th to roll around if you're in Tennessee? Nobody in this room, I think, is going to sit around and wait on that to happen. So figure out where you're going to go to help you accomplish that goal. If your goal is to start your season early, where is it that you can go? Well, you can go to Mississippi, you can go to Florida, you can go to Hawaii. And let that be where you start. So pick your place to go, and then get online and study the regs for that state until the hunting regs, until you know them backwards and forwards. But also start thinking about what are you going to do? Are you going to hunt public ground, or are you going to hunt private ground? If you're going to hunt private ground, there's a really good chance, unless you have a friend in that state, there's a really good chance if you're going to try to hunt with an outfitter that you should have booked that hunt about 2 years ago. So there's a lot of thought that has to go into all this and a lot of pre-planning that you got to do to make it all happen. But let's say you leave here today and you say, all right, yeah, I want to go to Mississippi. You live in Tennessee, but you want to go to Mississippi and start your hunt early. Well, pretty much I'm going to guess every outfitter that's worth going with in Mississippi is already booked for this year. So what are you going to do? You're going to be left hunting public ground. Well, your public ground is now, because Mississippi does start earlier than most states, it's gotten hard to hunt public ground. If you're going to hunt a WMA, you had to put in for a draw, or you have to put in for a draw, and that draw period is probably coming up here pretty quick. So if you're not going to hunt a WMA, that leaves you hunting a national forest. And you don't have to have a draw, or you don't have to draw to hunt a national forest. You can go hunt that. Well, that's great. So which national forest are you going to go hunt? So you got to figure out where in the state you're going to go, which national forest, and then you got to start diving a little bit deeper. You got to get on the telephone. You need to call somebody that works for the Forest Service, that works at national forest, and start asking questions. Because the national forest, they're pretty darn big. So where are your boots going to be on the ground opening day or 2 days before season if you're going to go out there and you're going to scout? So you got to start doing your homework with all that. You need to decide, are you going to drive or are you going to fly? Or if you're going to fly and you don't have a gun case, you're going to need a gun case, a good one. Because I will promise you, the people that work for the airlines do not care about your shotgun as much as you care about it. In fact, I think they look for a shotgun case just to see how far they can throw it and how much they can bang it up and beat it up. I'm convinced that they do that. So you've got to have, if you're going to fly, you've got to prepare for all that. You're going to have to get your ticket well in advance. You need to arrange your flight times with your days off of work. The travel is a whole different thing these days. It's much more difficult now than it was when I started in the early 2000s to fly and have your firearm with you, and it is not impossible. And a lot of people that haven't traveled with a firearm don't know, but every airport is different. It would be great if there were the same standards and same procedures at every airport that you go to. But I'll promise you, if you're going to go through the airport in New York City, one of the two, it's going to be a much different experience than going through the airport in Birmingham or in Rapid City, South Dakota. The process is going to be different, and the people you deal with are going to be different. You show up with a firearm in New York City, you're a criminal right off the bat in their minds. You show up with a firearm in Rapid City, and you're just like the next guy standing in line and the one that just went through line. They will process it and get you through, in and out. It's not a big deal. But as long as you're following the rules that the airlines and the FAA set forth, you don't have a problem with all that. So there's a lot that goes into planning for these trips, and we got this great resource now that we didn't have as much of 20-something years ago when I started doing this, and that's the internet. And so you can get on and you can read the FAA's regulations for traveling with a firearm. It'll tell you that your gun needs to be unloaded. And when they say unloaded, they mean unloaded. And if you're going to have one of your buddy's guns in your gun case, his gun has to be unloaded too. Unlike my friend Brian that brought me his gun and said, hey, put this in your case the day before we leave to go on a trip, and he's got a shell in the magazine. And I said two things to him. One of them was not nice, and the other one was, why did you do this? You didn't unload the gun. So the traveling part of it adds to the adventure as well, and that whole process, that whole experience of going through an airport with the guns, it can be very easy and very simple and very pleasant, and it can totally ruin your turkey season if you don't do it the way that it's laid out for them, or for you to do it, I should say. I had a thought about that, and something very important. Even if you're not going to fly, but you plan on traveling across the country with your gun in your truck to go on a turkey hunt, you need to be familiar with the states that you're traveling through, because every state has different firearm laws. And I heard the story, and I don't know how true this is because it came secondhand, but I heard the story of a guy that was in Kansas and was traveling with his firearm, his shotgun, going from one piece of public ground to another piece of public ground, and got pulled over for speeding, and he ended up in jail because he was not following the state laws for transporting his firearm. Now, I'm sure he copped an attitude. I shouldn't use the word copped an attitude. I'm sure he got an attitude with the cop, and that didn't help him at all. But if he knew what the state laws were for traveling with a firearm, and he followed those laws, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. The cop opens up the gun case and he's got nothing on him. So he's gone and on his way and enjoying his hunt. But instead, he ends up in some podunk jail in Kansas because he didn't know what the state laws were for traveling with a gun in Kansas. So to make matters even more confusing, every municipality has a little bit different gun law for traveling with gun laws, and especially I think the Northeast is even worse than anywhere else in the country about all that. But the safest thing to do if you're traveling, and whether you're in a rental car or you're in your own vehicle, the safest thing to do, unload the gun completely, not a shell in the magazine at all. Put the shells away from the gun, put the shells in the glove compartment, keep the gun in the back of the SUV. Lock the gun case. If you do those things, I don't think you're going to have any problems at all with even local law enforcement, because your ammo's not near your gun. And some of these states, I mean, and municipalities, they'll say you can travel with a gun, it's got to be in a lock case, and it cannot be where you can reach it. I'm sorry, if you're in an SUV, you can reach that gun. You may have to climb over 2 or 3 rows of seats, but you can get to that gun. So if it's locked in the gun case, I feel like a judge is going to have a hard time with that. But it's important to know those laws, because you got to be able, you can't trust that the police officer that pulls you over knows them. So you've got to be able to know them and defend yourself if you ever have to in that case. So I mentioned scouting. Who in here has Onyx or one of the other mapping? Okay. So you're all, I'm sure, familiar with scouting by using Onyx, and you know what I would tell you, my huge tip, the huge secret you're going to run away with and just blow all your friends away with with your success this turkey season is when you're looking at the map apps and you're looking at this humongous national forest trying to figure out where you're going to go and hunt. You're just looking for transitions in the habitat. So there's my huge secret, and you're all like, oh, I knew that. But where your clear cuts meet your hardwoods, or your planted pines meet your hardwoods, or your planted pines meet your mixed hardwoods and pine areas, where your swamp meets your upland and it's no longer swamp, those are great places to start. I used to like to start with the telephone, calling that manager of that national forest and saying, hey, where can I go and find a wild turkey? But what I found now is I call that manager of the national forest and I say, hey, where can I go find a wild turkey? And he said, well, go where I told the other 100 people that called me last week to go. So that's gotten a little bit more difficult. But these days you can still get some help and some knowledge from the manager of the WMA, the manager of that national forest, or even in North Carolina, I bumped into a guy that was doing some logging on a national forest. And he said, I used to hunt this national forest a lot, but I don't turkey hunt anymore. And let me show you on the map where I used to kill turkeys. So, two things there. Don't be afraid to stop and talk to somebody. If you stop me to talk to me, I'm going to lie to you. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I'm going to flat out lie to you. I don't care if you've got your son with you. I don't care if you have your wife with you. I don't care if you have your 140-year-old dad with you. I'm going to lie and tell you I've not heard a turkey. I've not seen a turkey. I've not seen a track or a feather. And I'm convinced there is no turkey on this place. But your guys like, your men and women that are out there working, timber, your loggers, your people that are working gas wells, stop and talk to them. They are a wealth of information and they'll help you. Your mail carriers, UPS drivers, FedEx drivers, they're driving through those places to deliver packages. They see turkeys. They probably don't hear them, but they see them. The other thing is they're local and they might deer hunt and they might say, I see a lot of turkeys over in this area when I'm deer hunting or when I'm squirrel hunting or coon hunting or whatever it is they do. So talk to people when you get there. Try to talk to people before you get there, people who might be familiar with the area. One other thing I would say that's a good resource is, as much as I hate it, get on social media. Get on Facebook and join a group, Michigan Turkey Hunters, if you're going to Michigan. Every state's going to have a turkey hunting group. And get on there and just say, hey, I live in Alabama. I'm coming to Michigan this year to hunt. I don't want to know the tree that you sit on opening morning every year. I don't want to know it. But I want to know just some of the best WMAs out there. You know, where's some of the best public grounds to go to that I can hunt? People will share information with you like that. You know, message me. Now you're going to get 25 people telling you you're an idiot, you don't know anything, stay out of our state, whatever it happens to be, and you have to ignore them because that's just what social media is. It's a platform for people that don't need platforms. But there are some great people out there who are willing to help you. There's some people out there that are going to do the same thing that I told you this logger did for me in North Carolina. I don't turkey hunt anymore. But when I did, I used to hunt this place over here and there was always a lot of turkeys on it. So you can get some good information if you can weed through all the haters on social media. You can get some good information from there. So use those resources to kind of narrow down, figure out where you're going to go if you're going to hunt some public ground. If you're going to hunt private ground and hunt with an outfitter, I cannot stress enough, I have hunted with enough bad outfitters to tell you that you've got to ask for references. No outfitter is going to give you a reference of somebody that hates them. It's just not going to happen. If you ask anybody to tell me how good I am at my business, I'm not going to give you somebody that just cussed me on the telephone. I'm not going to give you their contact information. I'm going to give you the people that sing my praises. So when you ask an outfitter for references, you're only getting the best references. So what can you do? You can get on and make a phone call to the Better Business Bureau in that county or that city and ask if there's been any complaints filed. One thing that I've done, get on Facebook and look at reviews that people have posted on there for that outfitter on their page. One thing that I've done, and this is not a foolproof way of determining whether an outfitter is worthy of going with or not, but if that outfitter is going to feed you, if that outfitter is going to put you up in a place to stay, if they have a lodge or a camp, they're serious about what they do. It's the guys that outfit that just say, well, you know, I live next to a national forest that's got 1 million acres, and I own 40 acres next to it. I think I'll bring some turkey hunters in here and we can hunt my 40 acres. And then we can get over in the public ground because I know where all the turkeys are in the public ground and we can go and hunt there too. To me, that's somebody running an outfitting business just as a side gig and they're not serious about it. If they've got a lodge, they're going to feed you and put you up, they're pretty serious about doing that. And that's generally a good indicator that you're going to be getting hooked up with a good outfitter. So that public-private, make that decision and move forward from there. Again, I'm going to touch on this a little bit about the draws and the licenses, because a lot of states now, because of the Super Slam and so many people pursuing it, a lot of states are moving towards draws. The Black Hills now is a draw area. And the Black Hills, that's where I killed my first Merriam's turkey. The only other turkey hunter I ran into in that area when I was hunting that the first time I went was the game warden that told me about it from home. So now that whole area is a draw area because it's being hunted so much. So these are the things that we've got to prepare for and plan for well ahead in advance of when we're actually planning on going. If you're going to do draws, there's a guy in fact, he's probably, if he's not here already, he'll be here tomorrow, would be my guess, but he'll be here. And he does hunts in South Dakota. His area is draw only. And when you draw, or when you put in for the draw and you don't draw, you get a point, a preference point. And those preference points, every year you put in, they add up. If you don't put in one year, you lose your preference points. And you have to start over. that area that he hunts has a minimum of 3 preference points before you're even going to stand a decent chance at all of drawing a tag in that area. Most of your public ground in Florida now where you can go and hunt Osceolas, most of those are draws. So, and the preference point build up or requirement for those areas, some of them now you're not going to draw if you don't have 6 or 8 preference points. They're just that hard to get now, and it's going to continue to get worse. So if you're going to travel and you're going to do these things, plan ahead, start now. If you think, hey, I want to go kill an Osceola on public ground, start putting in for draws to build those preference points, because you can go to the national forests that don't have the draws, but you're going to be there with the competition on those places is insane. Is it insane? Yep. It is. Who else has hunted South Florida public ground? So you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't do a draw hunt, it's Madison Square Garden. It's insane. So do those things with the intention of hey, I'm not going to draw to go to this prime piece of public ground with limited access in South Florida. I'm not going to draw this for 8 years or 10 years. But when I do get to go, it's going to be good. And, you know, these states are doing, a lot of these states are doing what they have to do to protect their turkeys. And that's what we want. But we're the ones having to pay the price to not be able to go and do it when we want to do it, how we want to do it. And so you got to kind of plan for those things, as I said. What are you going to do? Are you going to camp when you get there? If you're going to camp when you get there, that tells me there's a 95% chance that you probably are not flying, that you're driving, because it's hard to pack a tent. It's hard to pack your camp stove. It's hard to pack your warm blankets and your sleeping bag and a suitcase to take with you. I did it though when I hunted Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. I flew up there and I rented a car and I said, I'm going to sleep in my car. I need to go to Walmart and get a sleeping bag, and I need a cooler, and I need to buy all my groceries, and I need some way to cook all that stuff. So you can do that. I flew up there, got the rental car, went and spent $250 at Walmart buying all the stuff I needed to survive for a week up there, living out of the vehicle. And then before I left the airport and dropped the rental car off at the airport, I went by one of the local shelters and I dropped off the air mattress, the sleeping bag, all the groceries that I had not opened, and all that stuff, and I just donated all that stuff because I'm not flying back home with it. So you can make that happen. There's easy ways to do all that. What are you going to do when you get there? If you're lucky enough to kill a turkey, what are you going to do with that turkey when you get it back? For me, when I went and started the Super Slam, I said, or not Super Slam, but started my Grand Slam, I said, I want to get a turkey, each one of the subspecies mounted. So how am I going to get that bird from Texas back home because I'm flying to Texas? How am I going to get that bird from Nebraska back home because I'm flying to Nebraska? Same with Florida. I'm flying there. What am I going to do to get those birds back? What I did is I went and I bought, at that time it was a $40 igloo cooler, but it was the biggest one they made. And I took a duffel bag, empty, put it in the bottom of that cooler, packed all of my gear in that cooler, wrote my name with a Sharpie on the cooler, the top of it, took duct tape, wrapped it around, taped the cooler shut, and that was my bag flying out there. Of course, I had my gun case too, and I had some stuff in the gun case. Then on the way back, I was fortunate enough to kill a turkey on all those trips. What I did was all the stuff that was packed in that cooler went in the duffel bag that I'd packed in the cooler. That was my suitcase coming back home. The turkey went in the cooler, and I taped the cooler up again after I checked it in at the airport, because they want to see what's in the cooler when you take it in there and you're getting checked in for your flight, which, by the way, you do want to tell them. For those of you who haven't traveled on a plane a whole lot, don't kid around and don't joke with them. When they ask you something, answer the question right. They'll ask you what's in that cooler, and you tell them it's a wild turkey. And they're going to laugh at you and think you're kidding until they open it and they get scared to death, like the lady in South Dakota did. So that's a good way if you want to bring your bird back. That's a good way to do that. There's some great videos on YouTube that you can watch that'll teach you how to skin out a turkey, and you can leave or eat the turkey, but just bring the skin, the feathers, wings, feather, the tail, the fan, all that stuff still together. The bird's just caped out, and now you got a package like this to bring back with you instead of a turkey that's 20 pounds. Now you got to check on an airplane. So things like that are helpful. Again, knowing what the laws are in the state that you're going to, what are the requirements for that state as far as if you're lucky enough to harvest a bird, do you have to tag that bird? Do you have to just call it in and report that bird that you've harvested? Or do you physically have to take that bird to a tag station and check that bird in? So I can't remember if it was New Hampshire or Vermont, but one of the two, you had to physically take your turkey to a check station, and they would check that bird in for you, register that bird with the state. I think since COVID that's changed and you don't have to do it in that state anymore. But you have to remember, if your flight's leaving at noon and you got a turkey to check that you killed at 9:45, you got a boogie. You got to go and make things happen, or you're going to have to reschedule your flight. And so all this stuff, it adds up. And when I started this, I said, enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, because that really is the experience. Don't let that stuff get in the way of, or don't let your goal get in the way of that stuff. The crazy states that you go to, that I say they're crazy, they're really not, because they got great turkey numbers. But these states that have cutoffs of noon or 1 o'clock, the wildlife officers, the game wardens in those states, they are dead serious. When they say 1 o'clock, that hunt's over at 1 o'clock. It ain't over at 1:01. That hunt's over at 1 o'clock, and don't think for a second that they won't sit at your truck and wait from 12:45 to 1:01 to write you a ticket, because they'll be happy to. They're serious about it. But it goes back into knowing all of the regulations for that state, because some states say our cutoff for hunting is at 1 o'clock. You have to be out of the woods by 2. Some states will say our cutoff is 1 o'clock. You got to be out of the woods at 1 o'clock. So you need to know what those things are and know all those rules. Those are the little things that'll come up and bite you in the rear end when you don't want them to. You don't want to come home with a dead turkey and a ticket, or have to travel back up to whatever state to go to court because you didn't know that it was going to take you 5 extra minutes to walk to the truck. Even though you quit turkey hunting in plenty of time, it just took you longer to get to the truck than what you thought. I had a game warden in West Virginia. Cutoff time for hunting was 1 o'clock. I got to my truck at about 12:57 and he's sitting there waiting on me. He said, I thought I was going to get to write a ticket today. I said, not for me. He said, well, there's another truck down here. I'm going to go check him. I'll see you later. And he was gone. Didn't ask for my license. Didn't ask if I killed a bird. Didn't ask if I killed a deer or a bald eagle or anything. He was just wanting to write a ticket if I showed up at 1:01. So the low-hanging fruit's what most of them are looking for when it comes to that kind of stuff if they're just out patrolling. So one other thing I'll throw out there, be cognizant of your time zones. One great strategy when traveling and hunting out of state is to, like for me, I want to go somewhere where I can, especially if I'm going to a bird that's a one-bird state, I want to go where if I'm going to kill in that state, I can travel 15 minutes into another state, and now I can hunt again. So I'm going to hunt or try to hunt areas of states that are close together. I want to go hunt part of Wisconsin where I can slip into Minnesota and I can drive, not a good example, I'll use Iowa, but I can also go to Iowa, in a 30-minute drive as well. And knowing what those turkey numbers are in those areas and trying to gear myself up for the best chance of success in those areas, but also give myself a chance to kill in those other states. So be careful of your time zones, because as great as the cell phones are to use as your alarm to wake up, if your cell phone is picking up from a tower in the central time zone and you're hunting in an eastern time zone, you may find that you wake up an hour later, an hour after daylight. So kind of little side note, that's just one of those things I learned the hard way. So keep that in mind. Another thing too, if you are traveling around, and one of the things that my buddies like to do more so than I do when we're traveling is they like to scout by truck and cover as much ground as they can cover. I haven't killed very many turkeys from the truck. So I like to get out and burn rubber on my shoes and my boots instead of being in the truck, but they like to get eyeballs on turkeys and then try to go and knock on doors and ask landowners for permission. It still works. It's gotten harder to do, to get permission on private ground, as most everybody in the room already knows. If you do get permission, don't ruin it for everybody else that comes in after you. If the landowner has wishes, just do what the landowner says. If the landowner says don't hunt anywhere near this barn over here, or don't walk in this pasture because I got cows in it or I got horses in it. If the landowner says don't use this road over here, don't do any of that. Please be considerate of what the landowners want you to do. I'm going to guess most everybody in here is a landowner or a property owner. If you own a home, you're a property owner. You want people to be respectful of your stuff that you own. We need to be respectful of theirs as well. So that's something that's very important to me. And check your truck or around your truck before you leave. Make sure no trash fell out. I mean, little stuff like that. You know, be sure to ask the landowner if I drive down this road, is there somewhere you want me to park? Because sometimes they won't think about that. If they're working a field down that road and you park in the middle of that road because it's swampy on both sides of it, well, you just kept them from going and working that field that day. They may not have thought about it when you told them, or when you asked them 2 days ago if you could hunt their land, and they said yes. So things like that. What do I need to consider while I'm on your land? Is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything I don't need to do? Can I help you here at your farm? I'm going to come back here at lunch, get in my truck and ride into town to get something to eat. If there's something I can help you do for 30 minutes or an hour, what can I do? If you want to build goodwill, ask a farmer if you can help them. And you'll get an invite back. 9 times out of 10, you'll get an invite back. Take really good pictures. If you kill a bird, take some really good pictures. Is anybody in here, do y'all know Jeff Buds or know who Jeff Buds is? So for those of you who don't, I don't like to do the whole, this person's the first person to do that, or this person's the person who did the most of this or that. But just to give you an idea, I believe he's got more Grand Slams than anybody in the country, and it's not even close. I think he gets about 5 a year, 5 Grand Slams a year. But one thing that I learned from him is don't be afraid to, when you kill a bird and you get ready to take a picture, don't be afraid to drive an hour to get a picture. If you're in the Black Hills and you kill a turkey and you're 45 minutes or an hour from Mount Rushmore, don't kick yourself in the rear end 2 years later because you didn't drive that turkey 45 minutes or an hour to Mount Rushmore and get your picture taken with that turkey. It's all part of enjoying the ride and enjoying the journey. And to be able to have, I've got a picture with a Merriam's turkey and Devil's Tower in the background. It's one of my favorite pictures. This past year, I got a picture, and this was just fun to do, period. I got a picture of a Rio that I killed in California, and I drove 45 minutes to the coast, and I got a picture of me and that turkey on a rock with the Pacific Ocean behind us. And just enjoying the look on those Californians' faces when you come walking from the parking lot dressed in full camo with a turkey over your shoulder. That was enough to make that fun. But that's a beautiful picture. It's an awesome picture, but it represents that state. So not only do you have a picture of a beautiful turkey, but you got something that represents that state, and that's something that you know, I think is pretty important to do. So, you know, if you're in New Jersey and kill one, go to a blueberry farm and get your picture taken. Or, you know, roll out to Atlantic City and get your picture taken with your turkey in Atlantic City. Something that signifies that state, and you'll have a good memory there. So, are there any, there's a lot to this, really. I mean, I could do a 2-hour talk about all this, but I want to kind of open this up for questions. First of all, I hope this has been helpful for some of you, but are there any questions? Y'all have any questions about traveling and turkey hunting? For those of you who haven't started it yet, what are your hesitations? Yes, sir.
For me, you know, being somewhat younger, one of the who have the means or the ability to take off work like I do because I work for myself, you know, to take off and travel. So like, you know, I've hunted Ohio and PA up from New York, you know, and I'll do that drive by myself and hunt by myself out there. But, you know, sometimes it's hard for me to get motivated, you know, to drive to Nebraska or something like that, you know, if I don't have somebody to go with me.
Yeah. I can totally understand that. So when I started, I started the seminar by telling you guys how I started traveling to turkey hunting and turkey hunting, and I started this with a group of guys that from that first hunt in Nebraska, there's only one of those four that, well, three other guys that were on that trip that are still doing this with me, of trying to do the Super Slam. But we brought other people in along the way, and our goal has been to complete the Super Slam together. So there's four of us that we started out with four. Two of them fell off. That left me and another guy. We brought in 6 others on some of the trips we went to. We went to Wyoming. There were 8 of us on that trip. 4 of those 8 fell off, and that left 4 of us, and we've been going at this for 20 years. In my mind, I'm not through with my Super Slam until they're through with their Super Slam, because we started it together, we're going to finish it together. It's more fun to do this, to do something like that with a group. I mean, it just is, you know, and what's the book? Turkey hunting, a one-man game or a one-man sport. What's the title of the book? Yeah. And a lot of people feel that way. But you don't have to hunt together, but it's more fun to have somebody to travel with you, to share stories with by the campfire at night, to share stories with at lunch or whatever else. So I totally understand that. I've hit several states by myself without my 3 traveling buddies and 3 hunting buddies that I'm doing this with. And the only thing I'll tell you, other than the loneliness part of it, which my wife will tell you I'm a loner anyway, so it doesn't really bother me, but it's the safety aspect of it. And that's something that you need to think about. Don't be afraid to travel and do this on your own, but be smart about it. And I remember being young when I was bulletproof. Stuff can happen to us when we're out there. It can happen driving from point A to point B. It can happen when we're in the woods, and we don't ever think it's going to happen to us, but it can. So what I typically do when I'm on these trips by myself is I provide my itinerary to my wife, and my wife, she'll never see this video or never hear this audio, so it's okay. She sucks at reading a map. I mean, thank God we live 0.3 of a mile from the grocery store, because I don't believe she could get to the grocery store and back if we didn't. I love her to death. Think the world of her. We've all got our weaknesses as human beings, and I will tell you, her number one weakness is reading a map. But I will send her a pin of where I'm sleeping at night, where I'm camping. I will take a little screenshot of OnX with a pin dropped in it, so there's some coordinates in there too. But I'll take that snapshot in my phone on my gallery, and I'll circle the area that I'm going to be hunting that day or the next day, and I'll text that to her. She has very strict instructions that if you don't hear from me by 7 o'clock at night or whatever time, send that pin or that GPS coordinates, send that to one of my friends. They can read a map. They know who to send it to. They know you get in touch with the game warden in that area, you get in touch with the police in that area, you get in touch with whoever in that area. But you want to make sure somebody knows where you're going to be. Because if you fall and you have a compound fracture in your leg, chances of you limping out are zero. Chances of you crawling out are not real good either. You're going to want some help. And there's a really, really good chance wherever you are, you're not going to have good cell service. So the main thing I would tell you about traveling alone is just that safety part of it. As scary as it is to me, I'm blown away at when I hear a story like, oh gosh, it was somebody from Alabama, but I believe they were in North Carolina or something. They were killed in a campground this past year. Just random act. I mean, just killed by somebody in a campground. It just, it blows my mind. I mean, someplace you think you can go and you're going to be away from everybody, and next thing you know, you're camping next to somebody who's just lost their mind. But you don't want that happening. You got a gun, you're hunting, so chances are you're going to be able to protect yourself. But letting somebody know where you're going to be when you sleep, letting somebody know where you're going to be when you hunt, those are all very, very important things if you're doing this by yourself. Yes, sir. What was that?
In reach.
In reach.
Yeah, it's my wife calls it the body finder. Because I hunt along a lot.
Yeah.
You just slip it on your pack. It's a beacon. It knows where you are. And no matter where you are, it's a satellite device.
Okay.
If you have a compound fracture where there's no cell service, you just push the panic button and they send the whatever there is to rescue you.
You can also
Good
turn
info.
on tracking, so it'll track you along the way. So if your wife pulled it up, she saw, okay, well, he hadn't moved in like 12 hours. There's got to be something going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Get that to them in the mall and stuff like that.
There you go. That would be good. That would be good. Let's do that.
Get their purses or something, you know?
Yeah. Air tags.
Of course, you may not want to know where she's going.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll come right back to you, Mark, in just a second. Weather. Be cognizant of the weather. And, if you're out west, it literally can change by the hour. I mean, those trips out west are so hard to prepare for when you're getting all your gear together and packing, because you have to bring everything. I have to bring my insulated boots that weigh 10 pounds each is what it feels like. And I have to bring my hiking boots that weigh 1 pound each, because that's what I'd prefer to wear, are the hiking boots. But if it snows 2 feet, I'm not wearing hiking boots. Not for long, because I'm not going to be out long. So you need to know the areas that you're going to and just how quickly things can change. In the Southeast, we're pretty lucky. Springtime, we have these days where it gets cold, but it seems like the very next day is 70 and sunny. So you can deal with being uncomfortable, but out west somewhere, it might be a matter of life or death. And so you've got to really think about that kind of stuff and be prepared for any kind of circumstance when weather-wise. So that's another thing, whether you're alone or you're with somebody else. And in talking about boots, please don't buy a brand new pair of boots the day before your trip and expect to wear them and have a good time, because you're not. You're going to get blisters, you're going to be miserable. It's going to ruin your trip. Mark?
And one thing I want to say is, you brought up an interesting point about the safety. I've hunted with Herb McClure up here at Blue Ridge WMA, and I told Catherine this year, I said, I said, I'd like to go back and hunt that area again. I mean, that route going up to where he and I hunted is embedded in my brain. I mean, I can go there today, and it's been like 3 years since he and I hunted up there. But the safety issue is what concerns me. I'm getting older, she'll be down in Claxton, Georgia down there, I'll be up here. And so, that is a concern, is, like I said, I'm getting older, and we're going, Mike Robear come up expecting to have a good weekend. He's over to Gainesville Hospital.
Mhm.
Are we going to befall that? And I'm glad you brought up the point about the safety feature that you can mash the button and all on, things like that tend to cross our minds as we get older. But like I said, that super slam, and I don't want to discourage anybody, but that is a young man's game. Like I said, by the end of 8 weeks, man, I'm glad to see it go out. Because
Yeah.
I hunt hard, and I think most everybody else in this room does the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. And, the whole safety thing, we need to be cognizant of that even when we're hunting at home. So I'm going to guess everybody in the room's got a turkey vest. We got a couple of young guys in here that might not have one, because I know the youngsters like to just run and gun and not have a whole lot of weight, and I totally get it. But who in here has some sort of a makeshift first aid kit in your vest? 3 or 4? It happens at home. It happens at home. So we just need to think about that kind of stuff. And really, and I think for us men especially, we hate to admit it, that we're not bulletproof, because for well over half of our lives we thought we were. But it just takes one misstep. I mean, it really does. And so I mentioned and just kind of really breezed over the story about when I was in Florida and I killed my Osceola and I completed my my Grand Slam. I mentioned on my way to the emergency room, I was thinking, hey, that was awesome. What can I do now? So on my way to the emergency room was because when I reached down and I grabbed that turkey by the head, because my buddy said, don't grab him. What he said was, don't stand on his neck and wait on him to die, because you'll mess up the mount. What we do, because he used to guide in Alabama, he said, we grab him by the head, by the neck, and hold him up, hold him out like this until they finish flopping. So I'm going to just give you a tip for those of you that have not killed an Osceola. Their legs are about this much longer than an eastern turkey. And when you reach down and you grab that turkey by the head, by the neck, and you're holding him out like this, it don't take much for the spur to come up on that leg that's longer than what you're used to and stick you in the finger. When he stuck me in the finger, I let go, and he's still hanging from my finger. And he is not happy. And he is kicking, and he is flapping and flopping and twisting and turning. And he ripped my finger from right here open all the way around to here. And I literally could pull the skin back and see the tendons in my finger. So we don't think about it. I was 31, 32 years old at the time. I was still bulletproof. Not like it was going to kill me, but it put a damper on my hunt. So I got 4 hours, 5 hours in the emergency room. I go in there, The doctor sits me down on the bed finally after waiting and shoots my finger up with Novocaine to deaden it a little bit. And he pulls my hand back like this, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm about to stitch you up." And I said, "Uh-uh." He said, "What do you mean, uh-uh?" I said, "You move it around here, I want to watch you." He said, "What?" I said, "I want to watch you stitch it up." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because I like that stuff." Do that. So anyway, just something little like that, you know, makes for a great story. And it didn't, you know, it's not like I have permanent damage in my hand or anything. That turkey could have ripped that tendon in my finger. Fortunately, it didn't happen. But it makes for a great story. But if I was out west, you know, if I was in South Dakota, out in the middle of the Black Hills, and I'm a 4-hour walk from the truck, that could have been not dangerous, but a lot worse than what it was. Instead, you know, I got a quick ride on the buggy back to the camp and then a chauffeured ride to the emergency room, and, you know, chauffeured ride back from the ranch owner, which was an inconvenience for him. So we do need to think about this stuff when we're out there. We really do. And we've all got our, I'm going to guess we all got our people that we would choose to hunt with if we were going to hunt with somebody, because we hunt in similar ways. We can tolerate each other when they're in the woods. Who in here's hunted with somebody, you've hunted turkeys with them, and you've just sworn, "I will never hunt with this person again"? Yeah. When I went to Texas the first time, I was with an outfitter. I'm sitting in the back seat. There was another hunter on the trip. We weren't together. Never met this person before in my life, but he's in the drive, or not in the driver's, but in the passenger seat in the front, and I'm sitting directly behind him. It's 30 minutes before daylight. The outfitter drops us off. It's a semi-guided hunt, so the outfitter's not calling for us. He's just dropping us here, dropping us there. This guy gets out of the truck with a shotgun. Because it's dark, he can't see, so he turns to where he's got the cab light from the truck to load his shotgun, with the gun pointed, the muzzle inside the truck at the outfitter, I mean, right at his head, and shoved a shell in the chamber. And as soon as and it happened so fast. He got out with a gun, he turned, put it in there, put the shell in. I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" And the outfitter's, he made himself as small as he could make him. You don't know who else is out there with you and how experienced they are and how good they are. So we need to kind of consider worst case scenario in all situations. You know, you're going to cross a lot. There's a log going across a creek. How many times have you done it at home? Not a big deal. I'm just going to cross this creek. It's just a 4-foot drop. If I fall, I land on my feet. Well, what if you don't? What if you do the splits on the log and you fall on your neck or your head in the water? You know, so let's be careful and think about things like that. Yes, sir.
Just a quick comment, something I learned the hard way. When flying, my own fault, but when flying, I threw just a couple extra shells underneath the foam that the gun was in, and I got yanked in, and they took the shells and gave me a real good talking to. Make sure they're in the factory box that they came in, and what difference it makes, I have no idea. It's a little cardboard box, but they have to be in that box, or else
Yeah. There is a lot to flying with a firearm. Who shoots TSS in here? Okay. Who has bought shotgun shells that are not TSS over the past 3 or 4 years? How hard is it to find shotgun shells during turkey season?
That's impossible.
Exactly. So if you're traveling and turkey hunting, you need to bring 3 times the number of shotgun shells that you think you're going to need. And don't think that, oh, I'm just going to shoot one time because it's a one bird state, so I need 3 shells. Bring several boxes, because chances are you're not going to find shotgun turkey shells if you shoot out. And it only takes, y'all know, it only takes one bad shot to have 4 more bad shots follow, and now you're out of shells.
I take some just regular lead bird loads that I sight in with, so I can do a re-verification if I need to, if I'm questioning about it. And I already know that, so it should still be in the same ballpark.
Yeah, yeah. And there's plenty of states, for whatever reason, that still say your shells have to, your shot in your shells can be no larger than a number 4 and no smaller than a number 6 or a number 7. And for those of us that shoot TSS number 9s or 10s or 8s, you rub those shotguns, take this off, you rub those shotgun shells real hard with your thumb, and you may take a little spit, but you can rub that number off of there. But that's not going to stop the game warden if he wants to write a ticket from opening up one of those shells and writing you a ticket. But just, again, it goes back to knowing the state's laws and following the state's laws, because there's some great game wardens out there. Y'all all know that. And there are some crappy ones out there, and y'all all know that too. And if we're traveling and turkey hunting, we're going to get the crappy one. That's just going to be who it is. Yes, sir.
Question, on flying, when you say you put your birds in the cooler, do you usually try to find dry ice somewhere? No?
I don't. When I bring a whole bird back, I know I'm not eating that turkey.
Yep.
Now, I tell you what I have started doing is, now I don't travel with the cooler anymore, but what I do is I will take that turkey when I kill it to a local processor or a taxidermist somewhere that's got that I know has a big cooler, and I'll get them to freeze it. If I have the time, I'll get them to freeze it. And then I'll take all my heavy clothes that I take with me, and I'll wrap that turkey up in my jacket and my long underwear and all my camo clothes, and it'll be just a big wad of clothing with a turkey on the inside of it. And you'll be surprised at how long that turkey will stay frozen. So even if you wanted to get home, clean that turkey and then eat it, you could still do that if you wanted to cape it out and eat it. But the easiest thing, if you're going to do that, if you want to eat that turkey, and it's a 8-bearded turkey, and he's got 4 spurs on each leg and is all white, yeah, you cape him out, and don't let it be your first time to cape one, because you'll mess it up. Practice at home. And like I said, there's some great videos on YouTube of that. It'll take you a while, but practice a few times on a couple of birds at home, because you'll be glad when you do kill that white bird that's got 4 sets of spurs and 8 12-inch beards on him that you want to get mounted.
There's another tip, like I ran into an issue with an outfitter, on a 4-day hunt. Obviously, a buddy of mine was with me. Outfitter had no cooler, no freezer, you know, like we killed birds on the first day, and we still got another 3 days to hunt. And I'm struggling trying to find some place to keep my bird cold till I can get it back home, you know, 14 hours back home.
Yeah.
That's something I learned the hard way, is to now if I do ask an outfitter, hey, if I kill, do you have a place for me to store my bird?
Yeah. 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 And those outfitters, interview them. You get them on the telephone, quiz them like they're dating your daughter. I mean, it'll make a big difference. I mean, look, what you said, and I apologize, sir, I don't know your name, but Bill's hat. So, Matt, what you said's true. So many of us don't have unlimited days off, and we don't have unlimited time away from family. And we do these trips, and we need to enjoy them and make the most out of them. And so the proper planning ahead of time before you go, it'll make all the difference. It's the difference in enjoying it and not enjoying it. I appreciate you guys coming. I mean, this is flattering for me that even one person would want to stick around with me to listen to me talk for a minute, much less an hour and 20 minutes.